Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I'd like to welcome you, dear viewers, to our series, Contemporary Issues, in which we continue to look at the variety of issues which face the Muslim world today, which are part of the thoughts of the world in general, where the non-Muslim world looks at the Muslim world and questions the practices. In our previous segment, we began looking at criminal justice, the criminal justice system in Islam. We looked at the issues of murder and how Islam treats it and addresses it. In this segment, we're going to be looking at theft, the issue of what to do when somebody steals. Muslims are noted for chopping off hands, or oftentimes in the media they will say hacking off hands, as if Muslims will take a hacksaw, and saw off people's hands. Of course, it's not done in this way, but this is the media hype to give the impression of savagery amongst Muslims, that this is how they deal with the crimes. The fact is, yes, according to Islamic law, it is mentioned in the 5th chapter of the Quran, verse 38, Allah says there, "As for thieves, both male and female, cut off their hands as recompense for their deeds, and an exemplary punishment from Allah." This is there. We have no doubt about it. Islam prescribes the amputation of the right hand of a person who steals. But there are conditions. There are conditions. It's not just applied, to anybody under any circumstance at any time. At one point, we have to start off with the issue of the times. If there are times of starvation, famine, there is some kind of tragedy in the society, people are in states of desperation, when a person steals under these circumstances, just to survive, then the law is not going to be applied. The law will be suspended during those periods. Secondly, if a worker stole from his boss who withheld his pay, for example, then again, the law will not be applied because he's stealing what is really his. Thirdly, if what he takes is considered to be public property, a person steals, for example, the fittings or rugs from a mosque or public transport, something like this, it's wrong. Punishment will be applied on that individual, but not cutting off the hand of the thief, because he had a part of that being public property. He had a right in it. Part of it was his. He shared in that right. Fourthly, if the value of what is taken was less than 10 dirhams, then they're not going to cut off the hand for it. And if the item stolen was not in its proper place, that is, if something was left accidentally, a person makes ablution, washes their hands whilst preparing for prayer, and they leave their watch somewhere and somebody snatched it, then they won't apply it there because there's temptation, issue of temptation. Meaning that the law is applied really for the person who is the professional criminal, the pickpocket, because there's no temptation in picking the pocket. This is something a person has to train himself for, or herself. So hands will be cut for that type of crime. Person breaks into a home or robs a bank. This is not something, things out of place, temptation is there. No. But what we find is that when the law is applied, you find in the society that the rate of theft drops drastically, as it did in Saudi Arabia when it was applied, as it did in the Sudan when it was applied. And it creates a sense of security within the society, where people are not obliged to latch up all their doors and put on burglar alarms and all these kinds of things that is common in Western societies today, where people live in fear of break-ins. Everybody's home on the block. Everybody, is experiencing this. Now, one point should also be mentioned is that when the hand is cut off, it's not sawn off again by a hacksaw, but it is amputated. And if the person repeats the crime, then the left foot is removed at the ankle. The left foot is removed at the ankle. And again, not sawn off, but amputated. And if a person, continues crime even after all of that, then the law does permit his execution, because this is obviously a criminal who cannot be reformed. There's no chance to stop this individual. Only thing is to put him down like a wild animal who just, is a danger to the society and just no way of controlling it. So that individual his life is taken for the protection of the society and the security of the society as a whole. And as I said, the punishment, of course, it may seem very harsh, but it carries with it, as Islamic punishments carry with them, deterrent value. The idea of losing one's hand. It is something which will cause a person to think twice. You go to jail for a year or 6 months or whatever for stealing, people are willing to take the chance. But to lose your hand or lose your foot, these situations will cause a person to think more than once before committing such crimes. Now, another area of criminal punishment is that for adultery and fornication, where Islam prescribes for adultery stoning to death, for fornication 100 lashes. And one point to note is that the application of these laws, whether it is cutting off the hand of the thief, or whether it is executing the murderer, or stoning to death the fornicator, or 100 lashes for one who was not married, who was involved in illicit sexual relations, these are done publicly. The law prescribes that people from the believers should be present to observe it. Not for entertainment. The idea is not for entertainment of the public, but for them to see Allah's laws in application. And the sight of it helps to enforce or to reinforce in the minds of the people, that God's laws are being applied and we should avoid these kinds of crimes. And Western law used to be applied that way also. It used to be applied publicly. The criminal was executed publicly. However, when it shifted to punishment done inside of a dungeon, inside of a prison, nobody sees it, it's only a statistic in the paper, so-and-so was executed for this crime, then it doesn't have that deterrent effect that it would if it were done publicly. Of course, it still has some, but the impact is not as great. And this is why this is a condition for the application of Islamic law, that it be done publicly. Now, when we come to the issues of fornication and adultery, and the West's attitude towards Islamic application of these laws, they look at this as being really outmoded. How to do this in these times? The reason for this is that there has been a change in moral standards in the West. Where the president himself of the country, presidents of these countries, may be known for adultery and fornication. The society accepts it. It elects them knowing these things. You go back 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it was inconceivable, that a president in these countries or prime ministers, could be elected or could become head of state knowing that they were involved in these kind of things. However, in our times, with the change in the morality of the society, this has become acceptable. It's become a norm. So naturally, in a society where adultery and fornication have become norms, they're accepted, nobody questions it, it causes the breakup of marriages and things like this. However, it's been decriminalized. It's no longer a crime because it's consenting adults. Consenting adults are involved in it, and this is the principle which governs the rightness and wrongness of sexual relations. As long as they say, it's between consenting adults, then really the society has no business to punish them or to be involved. To punish them or to get involved in their affairs is on the basis of religion. It's religion which says, no, this shouldn't take place.